All right, welcome back to our continuing breaking news coverage of the conviction today of former President Donald Trump in a New York City courtroom on 34 felony charges. Joining us now is someone who knows what it's like to be a high-profile politician on trial, then later convicted and sentenced to prison. Former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Trump commuted Blagojevich's federal prison sentence in February 2020. It came after he served nearly 8 years of a 14-year sentence for trying to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat after he was elected president. Governor Blagojevich joins us now. First, I got to get your reaction to today's verdict.
Well, I'm heartbroken. My heart is aching for President Trump because on a personal level, as you explained, I have a very strong personal feeling for him. But as an American, I'm heartbroken by what these weaponized, politicized prosecutors and political judges are doing to our democracy. And I didn't break a law, across the line, or take a penny. I spent 8 years in prison because President-elect Obama approached me to make a political deal. He didn't do anything wrong, but he went to the White House for 8 years. I went to the Big House for 8 years. My 8 years were a lot worse than hers. But I could recognize fake corruption charges. They failed to convict me at a first trial. They tried me a second time, and they custom-tailored fake jury instructions to criminalize things that are legal. And then they call them crimes. And they're doing the same thing to Trump.
In your trial, the second trial, the first trial ended in a hung jury. The second trial, the jury took 10 days to convict you. This jury took less than 2. This was a pretty fast verdict.
And yes, and that was an indication that they were going to convict, because having gone through the experience twice, and it's a very difficult experience to have to deal with, when the jury comes in quick, that means they've already made a decision. Look, President Trump had no chance in that trial. It was a Democrat judge who was very biased, who allowed unlawful jury instructions that if the appellate court is honest, they will reverse, but they probably won't because they're all Democrats. What was done to me was done by Republicans. It was a Bush-appointed prosecutor, a Republican judge, 3 Republican appellate court justices who protected their own. It was a political hit. And Democrats should not do this to Republicans. Republicans should not do this to Democrats, because what they're doing is destroying the real rule of law, our Constitution, and our electoral process, and our democracy. So the consequences of this kind of stuff is very, very grave. And I do believe there are going to be political repercussions. And your previous guest, I think, hit it exactly right. I think particularly in the black community, where I enjoyed 95% of the vote as a Democrat governor, the first governor to endorse Obama. They understand what a broken, racist, and corrupt criminal justice system has done to them, and they can see through the baloney like a lot of others can't because they've experienced it themselves. They're going to support Trump in numbers never seen since 1960. These are going to be historic numbers that Trump will get in the black community because of what they're doing. And the American people have common sense. They're not stupid. They support fair play, are against injustice, and they could see just how unfair and how unjust all of this is.
I've got to ask you, you were in the position that Donald Trump was in late this afternoon, where you were standing up and listening to a jury read the verdict, and you heard the jury say guilty in your case. What did that feel like in that moment? Because I'm pretty sure it must be something like what Donald Trump was feeling this afternoon.
Well, in my case, I could feel my knees getting weak. I didn't expect it. In spite of it all, I felt the law would prevail, and I couldn't imagine the judge and the prosecutors could be as corrupt as they were, that they would deny me a defense. 98% of the FBI tapes that show my innocence to this day are still under a gag order. I never imagined they would do something like this to the United States of America. So when the verdict came in, I was thunderstruck. And then when I was sentenced to 14 years in a case where no one even alleges I took a single penny, was political talk and political horse trading with Obama and his people, well, I was, of course, very disappointed with that decision. And then I sat there, and I would never give in. They put me in a higher security prison because these people, not only are they dishonest and corrupt, but they're bullies. And they try to shake down guilty pleas from innocent people. They also extort and bribe. It's a legal form of extortion and bribery, witnesses to say things. And they had the perfect guy in Michael Cohen, who's a guy who has absolutely no integrity.
You're not saying
no
Michael Cohen was bribed. I mean, look, Michael Cohen had I mean, careful. You're not.
No, what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, it's a form of bribery when they say, when on one hand they threaten him with a long prison sentence, on the other hand they reward him.
He served his prison sentence.
Very little. No, they let him out early. They let him out early
that was
because he was willing to say the things they wanted to say.
It had nothing to do with this trial.
Well, they didn't let a lot of people out because of the pandemic. I strongly believe.
They actually did.
Well, but most people still stayed in prison. Cohen got it, in my experience, knowing the system, knowing how they operate. They made a deal. He was willing to sing with the things that they composed to say about Trump, and therefore they let him out after a very short period of time, by the way. And they were threatening him with other things that he was doing with regarding taxi cab medallions and all kinds of things. These are the ways they operate. And they get scoundrels like Cohen to get up there and testify and do what they do, and still they didn't prove a crime. The way they get crimes on non-crimes is through those fake jury instructions, which I know they did in this particular case because I lived it myself in my particular case.
Well, Michael Cohen, just to be clear, his case is completely adjudicated. He didn't testify under any kind of a deal for any special treatment. He was convicted. He did serve his time. Yes, it was cut a little bit short because of the pandemic, but listen, there's a lot of people who can talk about his honesty and his problems with telling lies. He's a serial liar. That is not in dispute, but he was not under threat of further prosecution and testifying under pressure of that, like most witnesses are who are testifying on behalf of the prosecution. They're brought in and they're told, okay, you'll get a deal if you testify and flip against this guy. This was not the case with Michael Cohen.
Well, I would respectfully disagree with you on that, because there was no other motivation for him to do it other than the rewards that they provided him and the threats that they
I think he
put
said
on him
point blank
it
was revenge on his part. He was disgruntled and angry. He admitted it.
Because Trump didn't pardon him. But, you know, Elizabeth, I understand that. I respect what you're saying. But I spent 8 years in prison with guys like him. And so I feel like I know them. And they're chicken, cowardly, dishonest, sniveling snakes. And he was the star witness in this case. And I ought to tell you how broken that case is.
Rod Blagojevich, I was supposed to, before we had the breaking news, interview one of the jurors who served in your case, who told one of my producers that at the end of the verdict in your case, we all really liked Governor Blagojevich, but we had to find him guilty. So at least you won them on the personality contest. So,
Elizabeth, let me thank them for being nice people. They didn't do anything wrong. They just did what the judge and the prosecutors did with their fake jury instructions. They made the right decision when they were fed fake law. And that's what happened in Trump's case. I just know it. And you'll see eventually, because the truth will one day come out.
Okay. Thank you, Rod Blagojevich, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.